As yesterday's one was all about setting up your week for success, today's one is going to be what to do when you're going out throughout your week. There's some key critical things that I do in my life that I feel that you should be doing too to be able to get more and more success. So that's what we're going to be really talking about. So yesterday we were talking about how we need to get our mind in the right place so our unconscious mind will actually go for our dreams and goals, or how we want to act and react, and pre-teaching it that way. But we just don't want to leave it there. We want to be able to take it to the next level. So how can we actually begin to take it to the next level? Well, if we've set our mind up correctly, so like for the next day, for the next week, we're going to get really, really good results. But there are other things that we can do that we have to ask ourselves throughout the day to even get better results. So what kind of things are they? Well, we have to be conscious of what's happening in our mind. And this is what I personally do. When I'm going throughout my day, I'm thinking quite often, what mindset am I in that moment? Are we in a learning state, or a learning state that allows us to get better, to get more focused, to allow us to be a certain way? Or are we spiraling back down to maybe stress or worries or doubts or whatever it may be? We have to be conscious of what's happening on the inside of us to be able to make the changes. We have to actually see what gauge we're giving ourselves when it comes to what we're feeling. And I just call that really a learning scale. So where are we out of 10? Are we in our peak spot of 10 out of 10? I'm ready to learn. I'm ready to be able to take on the day. I'm really, really thriving in whatever I'm doing. Or are we on a 1 or a 2 or even a 0 where we're feeling fear, doubts, worries, and spiraling out of control? Because if we begin to gauge ourselves as to our emotional state, our emotional well-being, and our emotional and psychological state of mind, we'll be able to not only gauge it, but actually retrain it into how we want it to be. But usually we begin to spiral out of control. We may have set up yesterday's video as to, I'm going to set up my day, my week, my month, my year. I know exactly what I'm doing. I'm planning it in the morning. I'm visualizing it in my mind. I'm feeling it. I'm resonating with it. I'm radiating it. I'm tuning into what I want. But then as time goes by, the reality of life's events can take us down a bit. So if we're going to be successful, we need to gauge how we are acting and reacting. We need to be conscious, in other words, because we usually go through things on autopilot. Before you know it, you might be going onto Facebook and procrastinating. You might be going for that alcoholic beverage or a cigarette or some bad behavior, or you might just be feeling certain emotions which cause you not to feel at your optimum. And that can be a very natural and unconscious process. So we have to really step up and catch ourselves in those moments. We have to really, and it does take time. It really does take time. And I'm all about investing my mind into getting it better. And because the reason why I say that investment of time will allow me to get better on autopilot. It will allow me to do things far more naturally without me consciously being involved. So if I put in the hard work in the beginning, my unconscious mind will take that on. So what we have to do is we're going through our day and we notice ourselves out of a 10 and a 0. 10 is our peak state. If we dropped all the way down from maybe a 10 down to a 9, to an 8, to a 5, to a 4, we have to be conscious of our emotional state at that point. If we're not in our optimum state, it's your signal to get back on track. And I've always said this when it comes to negative emotions or anxiety. Anxiety is our signal to focus on what we want. And it goes for the same thing with any low emotional state, if we're not focusing to the right level, if you're meant to be revising but your mind's drifting off elsewhere, you have to catch yourself in the act and become conscious of it to then redirect your attention. It's almost like if you notice your vision and your focus going off, you have to pull it back up and focus on what you want. Now, if you do that with consistency consciously, you will actually start to do it unconsciously. And it's actually like a 4 steps to learning. So the first step is when we're just completely oblivious, as I said, when we're just on autopilot, we're not even thinking about spiraling out of control, we're just experiencing life and just drifting through. But then we begin to wake up and we realize actually something's not quite right. And there's when we're becoming consciously incompetent at something. So we're conscious that something's not quite right in our world. And at that point, we then become consciously competent. So there's where you start to apply. So first of all, you're just drifting off naturally. So maybe you're procrastinating or you're feeling stress or fear or doubt. And then you catch yourself and you go, okay, I'm struggling with this, but I'm going to put my attention to where it needs to go. So if you need more focus, you begin to think about the desired outcome, how you want to be, how will it feel like having achieved that goal, how will it be to be able to experience the success that you want, or if it's about revision, or if it's about your job at hand, whatever it is, we catch ourselves in that moment. Now, if we do that with consistency, we will begin to look for our unconscious mind will begin to look for that new way of being. It will automatically go, oh, if I'm going off focus, if I'm going down from a 10 down to a 5, down to a 4, it will automatically bring you back up. But you have to be the conscious person. You have to be the person who's actually becoming conscious of your thoughts. You have to be conscious of what's happening with your emotional state. But the thing is, most people are never conscious of what's really happening inside of them. They might either not be aware of it, or even if they are, they just put up with those low negative feelings. So the key is that you have to catch yourself with your emotional well-being, with your thoughts, with your ideas, and your feelings. Now, Jonathan just said, when you gain weight slowly, it's hard to tell. So it absolutely is, because it's happening at an unconscious level at first. It happens when we're starting to slowly gain weight in this example, it's creeping in. So we have to really put our attention at a 10. Just for the next day, for the next week. And as we begin to do that, your unconscious mind will take over that. So yesterday's episode was about setting up your day. And that, Jonathan, will be a great one to look at, because that I'm teaching you there, or I'm actually teaching you to teach your unconscious mind to be able to set up your day right, to actually eat well or to act and react in certain ways. And then if we begin to apply this process of becoming the watcher of our thoughts, the watcher of our emotional state, we will actually begin to gauge ourselves. So if we begin to drop down from a 10 down to a 7, we then begin to focus our attention, because that's our signal to focus on what we want, or to go for that goal, or to whatever your desire is in that moment, you begin to put your attention there. And as I said, the first level is when we have no clue, we're just doing it unconsciously. Then we become conscious that something's wrong, and then we start to practice this process. There's where we become consciously competent at doing this. So the more you begin to gauge yourself out of 10 of your learning experience and what kind of emotional state you're in, as you begin to do that, you become very consciously competent at it. It's like you begin to just understand it and understand the natural way of being. And then the highest level, the step 4, is becoming unconsciously competent at it. That is where your unconscious mind begins to make the changes for you. That is where it will be the watcher of your thoughts. Now, I always advise to carry on watching. Or gauging your emotional state, because that means you can fine tune it, you can even get to a higher level. But if you could, for the next week, become conscious of where you are out of 10, 10 being the most learning state that you're in, the most focused state, 0 being absolutely nothing, when we become aware of that and then we push ourselves up, we begin to focus our attention, your unconscious mind will begin to do it for you. So yesterday's video, as I said, was about setting up your week. And today's video has all been about what to do during the week. If you combine the two processes, you'll begin to allow your unconscious mind to get far more efficient at whatever you're doing. And I promise you that this works. Today's been a really busy day for me. It's now almost 9 p.m. I'm going to finish work in probably about half hour. And I've been working since 9 o'clock this morning. And I've only had a small break to take Sebastian out to eat and things like that. And I am completely pumped up to carry on working. I feel alive, I feel energized, I've got that focus, and it's all down to becoming aware of what we're presently experiencing. So setting up our week on the one hand, and then becoming conscious of what our thoughts are doing. If you catch yourself dropping down, you have to bring yourself back up and focus on what you want. And if you're having trouble focusing on what you want, you begin to focus on what the desired goal is to be able to then focus on what it will feel like to having achieved it, because that's what I do. So right now I am doing multitasking things. I've got recording on this phone, I've got recording on my computer just here, I've got my mic down here for my podcast, I've got my bright light on me, and I feel really pumped up to carry on working. And I should have probably stopped a while ago, but I'm enjoying myself because I'm becoming conscious of my thoughts. My focus is becoming far more expanded and far more laser-like. And I'm not saying that to impress you whatsoever. I'm saying that if I can do it, someone who's dropped out of college and was terrible at school, who had a terrible learning strategy, and that's all it was, a bad learning strategy, a bad strategy of what was happening in my mind because I was never taught how to use my mind. But when we begin to understand how the mind works and carry out exactly what I just been talking about, when it becomes setting up your week and also becoming aware of your emotional state throughout the day, you will start to do this all by yourself at an unconscious level. That is where you get things on autopilot. That is where you actually go to work or whatever your goal is, and you just fly through it, and before you even know it, you've achieved so much in that day. I really put it down to that. Obviously, there's other things that I do as well, but in this video, there are two main things I'd like to talk about that's what I'd like to talk about in this video right here. Those two steps. One, setting up your day, and then the second, beginning to be the watcher of your emotional state. If you watch it, redirect it, you're going to get the success that you desire. It just means you're always improving. If you look at athletes, they're always aware of their technique. They're always refining themselves. They're always becoming aware of what they're actually doing, their thoughts, their feelings, and how they physically move. And I know that having worked with some professional athletes, they can become very conscious. The best ones are really in tune with how their body feels, what's really happening there. When we begin to do that, even if you don't want to be an athlete, if you become consciously aware of what's happening inside you, in your thoughts, your feelings and behaviors, if you notice yourself drifting off, if you notice yourself going down on a spiral of negativity, stress, or depression, or whatever it is, if you catch yourself right there and then allow that to be a part of you which wants you to then, or the part of you which begins to then focus, you'll get your unconscious mind doing that. So Jonathan said, do you find it difficult to shift projects? I find I get caught up in thoughts and emotions and recapping the day, but I would like to let it go for another project or activity. That is a good one. I have many projects on the go usually. Sometimes I'm doing more than one project at the same time. It sounds very weird, but I'm like jumping in and back and forth really. So I don't always advise that, but I can be a bit ADD when it comes to applying to my work at the moment. But what I notice is I think of the value. I think of the thing which is going to yield the biggest success in that moment. So if I were to end the day, and if I thought about ending the day, and if I wanted to do just one key thing or two key things, which would make my day in every way, that's what I focus on first. Because I know if I hit the big one right there, I'm going to feel great to be able to then take on the other project. So I do advise going on for that big project first, if that's for this question. I go for that. I experience the value of what it will allow me to feel having achieved that goal, which then, if I do that, I feel attraction to it. I feel as if I'm motivated and pulled to it. And that's actually true when on a brain level. When you begin to imagine the successful completion of your goal, which would be achievement, satisfaction, so these positive feelings, that will cause you to then be attracted to it. Usually with the big goals, we go, oh my God, it's a big goal, and I get fear, I got worry, I got doubts about it, and we're tapping into the lack of or the doubt. But if you start to catch yourself, as I've been saying, on that learning scale, a 10, become the watcher of your emotional state, and then focus on your end outcome, what it will allow you to do, you achieve that one goal, and then, Jonathan, you go ahead onto the next project and the next project. That is the way I really work efficiently. I know I did say that I jump back and forth because I just like to do that. But if I really want to be efficient, I go for the big project. But always, always, always make sure that you are gauging your thought process, that you are the watcher of your thoughts, you're the watcher of your feelings, and you're just really getting that awareness of what's happening in your body. When you begin to do that, you will then actually become far more laser-like in your attention, in your focus, and your redirection to getting your goal. So I'm about to hit the 18-minute now. I need to do another half-hour work because I can't wait to get into it. I love speaking to you guys though, but I am going to make sure that I'm going to be talking to you tomorrow. I don't know what time it will be, but it's probably going to be around this time or a few hours earlier. I really can't tell at this point because of my work schedule. But I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you for your questions. I hope you enjoyed this, and I look forward to speaking to you on another episode coming out very soon. Many thanks and goodbye.